Welcome to the Deep Dive. We really appreciate you giving us your dedicated time today to explore this with us. Buying a used gas car is, well, a bit like adopting a senior dog. You never quite know what expensive joint issues are hiding under the surface,
Exactly. You're just kind of waiting for the inevitable mechanic bill.
right? But buying a used EV, it's honestly just like checking the battery health in your smartphone settings. And our mission today is simple. Used EV prices have plummeted by up to 28%.
Which is just a massive drop.
It really is. So we're going to look at why 2026 is the golden era to buy and how you can spot a genuine bargain while dodging the traps.
And I think the best place to start isn't actually the price tag, but the underlying engineering. Because to really understand the market, you first have to establish why an aging EV is, remarkably safe to buy.
Right, because a traditional gas car has thousands of moving, grinding parts. But an EV only has, what, about 20? But is it really as simple as my smartphone battery analogy?
It really is, yeah. In a traditional car, you can't easily see how the engine was treated over its lifespan. But with an EV, you have this absolute digital transparency through something called the state of health, or SOH.
Wait, so is getting that SOH score something I need to pay a mechanic to do?
Not at all, no. You can just buy a cheap OBD onboard diagnostics dongle online for just a few pounds.
Oh, really? Just a little dongle.
Yeah, it plugs straight into a port right under the dashboard and sends an objective percentage of the battery's remaining life directly to an app on your phone.
That's brilliant. And it's not just the battery, right? Because I've heard the physical brakes on EVs basically last almost forever.
Yes, and that is due to regenerative braking. So when you lift your foot off the accelerator, the electric motor reverses its function to slow the car down.
Capturing all that kinetic energy.
Exactly, and putting it right back into the battery. Because the motor is doing all the heavy lifting, the physical brake pads barely get used. Add in the industry standard 8-year or 100,000-mile battery warranties, and the hardware is just virtually immortal compared to gas cars.
Okay, so if the engineering is so bulletproof, this 28% price drop doesn't really make logical sense. There has to be some kind of external market force driving that value down.
Spot on. It's a massive oversupply issue. Back between, 2020 and 2022, companies bought these massive fleets of EVs to take advantage of tax incentives.
Oh, and those leases are up.
Right. Those 3-year leases are all expiring simultaneously right now, which is just flooding the lots with inventory.
Okay, let's unpack this. With so much inventory, I imagine the influx of cheap, brand new Chinese EVs is compounding that, right? Like, if I can buy a brand new BYD or MG for cheap, I'm certainly not going to pay a premium for a 3-year-old fleet vehicle.
Exactly. The used market had to severely correct itself to compete, which means staggering bargains for you.
So what exactly should the listener buy, and what's a trap?
Well, a used Tesla Model 3 is down to around £12,000 now. Or you can grab a Nissan Leaf Mark II, which is just an absolutely brilliant family all-rounder.
But surely there are specific models taking the biggest hit for a reason. Like, what are those tracks we need to avoid?
2 major ones. First, explicitly avoid early Renault Zoes if they come with a mandatory monthly battery lease.
Oh yeah, you do not want to be stuck paying rental fees forever.
Exactly. And second, steer clear of the early BMW i3 with the range extender.
The range extender. That's a small petrol generator in the back of a car to charge the battery on the go, right?
Yeah.
Why is that a trap?
Because people almost never use them. That small generator just sits neglected for months. The fuel goes stale, the part seize up.
Ouch. And then it breaks when you actually need it.
Yeah, when you finally need it on a long trip, it fails. It becomes an incredibly expensive fix.
Okay, so avoiding unused generators and battery leases makes total sense. But here is where it gets really interesting. A cheap purchase price doesn't matter if the running costs bankrupt you. Everyone assumes charging is always cheaper than gas. And is that actually true for you?
Well, it entirely depends on where you plug in. If you have a home charger and use a specific ARF-peak EV energy tariff, say 7 pence per kilowatt hour, you will pay about 10.8 pence per mile.
Just to put that in perspective, at 7 pence per kilowatt hour, filling up your EV battery overnight costs less than buying a fancy cup of coffee.
Exactly. And that saves you roughly 1,690 pounds annually compared to a petrol car.
Wow. Okay, but that math relies entirely on getting that specific home tariff.
Yeah.
What if you live in an apartment without a driveway?
And that is the stark divide right there. If you rely solely on public rapid chargers, EVs actually cost more per mile than petrol.
Wait, really? More than petrol?
Yeah, you could be paying up to 30 pence a mile at a public station, completely eroding your savings.
Wow. So the core takeaway is really about knowing your specific situation. Armed with an SOH battery certificate and a driveway with a home charger, you are perfectly positioned to score the deal of the decade. Once again, thank you so much for your dedicated time today. We genuinely love getting to share this kind of actionable knowledge with you.
And I will leave you with this final thought. What if your cheap used EV could actually pay you back?
Pay you back? How?
The next frontier is V2G, or vehicle-to-grid technology.
Imagine that. Instead of a gas car sitting there depreciating, your parked car just sits in your driveway, quietly selling energy back to the power grid for a profit while you sleep. Now that is a certainty worth pondering.